The galaxy in peril. In a distant future, the galaxy is under the control of a ruthless alien empire known as the Zorax. Their rule is harsh and merciless, spreading fear and suffering across countless planets. The Zorax's technology is far beyond anything the galaxy has ever seen, and their armies are vast and powerful. They conquer planets without mercy, leaving destruction in their wake. Among the countless worlds suffering under Zorax rule, there is a small, forgotten corner of space. Here, hidden within the dark expanse of an uncharted nebula, rests an advanced starship from a bygone era. This starship, the Aurora, is not just any vessel. It carries the last hope of a once great human civilization. The Aurora is equipped with cutting-edge technology and powerful weapons, built to protect humanity against any threat. But time has passed, and the crew of the Aurora has been in cryo sleep for centuries. They were put into deep sleep during a time of great crisis, to await a time when their help would be needed. That time has come, but they remain unaware of the galaxy's current plight. Inside the Aurora, the cryo chambers hum quietly. The crew members are frozen in time, their bodies preserved in a state of suspended animation. Their faces, young and full of promise, are now hidden beneath layers of frost. The ship's systems are set to wake them only when certain conditions are met. These conditions include the distress signal of a galaxy in dire need, which has now become a reality. The galaxy's suffering is immense. Planets once filled with life are now barren, their populations enslaved or driven into hiding. The Zorax have a reputation for their brutality. They do not just conquer, they destroy cultures, erase histories, and extinguish hope. This empire's shadow stretches far and wide, leaving little room for resistance. But amid this darkness, a flicker of hope remains. The Aurora is a symbol of that hope. The advanced starship is a relic of a proud human civilization, one that had once stood against great odds and triumphed. It carries the last vestiges of humanity's power and potential, now lying dormant but ready to awaken. As the Zorax continue their reign of terror, whispers of rebellion begin to stir among the oppressed. Small groups of rebels, scattered across the galaxy, start to organize and fight back. They know that their chances of victory are slim against such a formidable enemy, but they cling to the hope that something or someone will come to their aid. Unbeknownst to these rebels, the Aurora is about to awaken. A cosmic event, a rare and powerful energy surge, interferes with the ship's systems. The cryo chambers, once stable and secure, begin to show signs of malfunction. The ship's onboard sensors detect anomalies and send out alerts. The dormant crew is stirred from their deep sleep by the sudden changes. Their bodies start to thaw, and the cryo chambers slowly open. As the humans awaken, confusion and disorientation grip them. They stretch and yawn, feeling the effects of centuries of sleep. They are greeted by the dim lights of the ship's interior and the soft hum of its machinery. The crew members slowly become aware of their surroundings, realizing that they are no longer in their time, but in a future they do not recognize. The crew's leader, Captain Alex Grant, takes charge of the situation. He quickly assesses the damage and begins to understand the gravity of the situation. The ship's systems are operational, but they need repair. The crew begins to explore the ship and learn more about the galaxy's current state. They discover records and logs detailing the rise of the Zorax and their brutal conquest. With the realization of the galaxy's peril, the crew of the Aurora feels a renewed sense of purpose. They know that their mission is not just to survive, but to protect and restore what has been lost. The future of the galaxy now rests on their shoulders, and they are ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead. As they prepare to embark on their journey, the crew understands that they are not just waking from sleep, but stepping into a battle that will determine the fate of countless worlds. The time for action has come, and the Aurora is ready to rise to the challenge. The awakening. The Aurora's cryo chambers groaned as they slowly opened. Inside, the crew members stirred from their deep slumber, their bodies unaccustomed to movement after centuries of stillness. The once frozen figures, now thawing, blinked in confusion at the dim lights and unfamiliar sounds of the ship's interior. Captain Alex Grant was the first to fully awaken. His eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the soft, flickering lights above. He glanced around the cryo chamber, taking in the sight of his fellow crew members beginning to wake. Their faces, once youthful and filled with determination, were now marked by the wear of time and the surprise of awakening into an unknown future. Alex tried to remember the last thing he had seen before falling into cryosleep. The memories were hazy, but he recalled the urgency of their mission. They had been placed in cryosleep as a precaution to preserve humanity's last hope against an uncertain threat. But what that threat was and why it had emerged were now lost to time. As the cryo chambers hissed open, the crew members emerged, stretching their limbs and rubbing their eyes. The cool air of the ship felt strange against their skin, and their muscles ached from the prolonged inactivity. They looked at each other, sharing puzzled glances as they tried to piece together their situation. Dr. Sarah Lynn, the ship's chief scientist, was among the last to wake. Her eyes fluttered open, and she immediately noticed the unfamiliar environment. Her scientific mind quickly shifted into high gear, analyzing the ship's systems and the signs of malfunctioning cryo chambers. The once perfectly maintained technology now showed signs of wear and age. "Captain," Sarah called out, her voice cracking slightly, "we've got problems. The cryo chambers are failing, and the ship's systems are showing irregularities." Alex nodded and stepped forward, his leadership instincts taking over. "Understood. Let's assess the situation and get a better picture of what's happening." The crew began to gather in the ship's main control room. The room was filled with ancient technology and consoles that flickered with intermittent lights. The once advanced controls now seemed outdated compared to the tech of the future. Yet the basic systems were still functional, and the crew quickly began to make sense of the data. The ship's logs, which had been recording the events of the past centuries, revealed a chilling truth. The galaxy was in turmoil. The Zorax Empire, which had risen to power after the crew's long sleep, had conquered countless worlds and enslaved their populations. The crew read through the reports, their faces growing grim with each new piece of information. Captain Alex and his team learned that their own civilization had been lost to history. They were the last remnants of a once great human force, now waking to a galaxy under siege. The crew had been kept in cryo sleep as a safeguard, but their awakening was clearly no coincidence. The galaxy's desperate situation had triggered their reactivation. Sarah pointed to the star maps displayed on the screens. "These maps show the extent of the Zorax Empire. They've taken over most of the galaxy. We're in the middle of enemy territory." Alex stared at the maps, his mind racing. "We need to understand the current state of the galaxy better and figure out our next steps. We can't remain passive." The crew began to discuss their options. They knew they needed to gather more information, establish contact with any remaining resistance groups, and find a way to counter the Zorax threat. Their ship, though old, still had advanced technology that could give them an edge. They needed to harness this technology and use their strategic knowledge to make a difference. As they prepared to leave the ship and scout the galaxy, the crew felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. They were stepping into a world they did not recognize, but they were determined to reclaim their place and fight for a better future. The Aurora was ready for action once more. The crew, now fully awake, felt the weight of their mission pressing upon them. They were not just awakening from sleep. They were waking to a galaxy in desperate need of their help. The journey ahead would be challenging, but they were prepared to face it head-on, driven by their duty and their hope for a brighter future. Learning the new reality. As the Aurora's crew ventured out into the galaxy, they quickly realized that they had awoken in a world far different from the one they had left behind. The starship glided silently through space, its sensors and scanners picking up distress signals and fragments of communication from countless worlds. The crew's anticipation grew as they began to understand the full extent of the galaxy's predicament. Captain Alex Grant and his team gathered in the ship's command center, where screens displayed data on the current state of the galaxy. The information was overwhelming. The once vibrant and diverse worlds were now shadows of their former selves, either under the brutal control of the Zorax or struggling in the aftermath of their conquests. "Look at this," said Dr. Sarah Lynn, pointing to a galaxy-wide map on the screen. "These red zones mark the areas under Zorax control. It's nearly everywhere. The Zorax have spread their rule far and wide, leaving little room for hope." The crew members stared at the map, their expressions a mix of shock and determination. They had been prepared to find challenges, but the scale of the Zorax Empire was beyond what they had imagined. The Empire's reach extended across entire star systems, and resistance seemed scattered and weak. Lieutenant Mark Davis, the ship's tactical officer, was examining reports from various resistance groups. These reports are fragmented, but they show that there are pockets of rebellion scattered throughout the galaxy. They're small and poorly equipped, but they're fighting back. Captain Alex nodded. "We need to make contact with these resistance groups. They might be our best chance at gathering more information and building a coalition against the Zorax." The crew worked tirelessly to establish communication with the scattered rebel factions. They used the Aurora's advanced technology to boost signals and bypass the Zorax's jamming efforts. Slowly, they began to receive responses from the resistance groups. Each message revealed more about the galaxy's current state and the challenges the rebels faced. One message came from a resistance leader named Kel, who was based on a remote planet known as Viridian. The message spoke of the suffering of his people and the Zorax's relentless campaigns. "We are desperate for help," Kel's message said. "The Zorax have taken everything from us. Any assistance you can provide would be a beacon of hope." The crew decided that their first mission would be to travel to Viridian and meet with Kale. The planet was isolated, surrounded by a dangerous asteroid field that made travel risky. However, the crew's determination was unshakable. They prepared the Aurora for the journey, knowing that their success might hinge on forging strong alliances with the Resistance. As they approached Viridian, the crew could see the scars of war on the planet's surface. Smoke and ash drifted from several regions, and the once lush landscapes were now marred by battle. The Aurora descended into the planet's atmosphere, landing near a hidden rebel base. Kale greeted them warmly, his face showing both relief and hope. "You've come at a crucial time," he said. "We've been fighting for so long, but our resources are running thin. We need a strategy, and we need to strike back at the Zorax." Alex and Sarah spent hours discussing tactics with Kale and his team. They learned that the Resistance was skilled but lacked the technology and coordination to launch effective counterattacks. The humans offered their advanced technology and expertise, sharing battle strategies and providing critical support. "We need to coordinate our efforts," Sarah advised. "If we can disrupt the Zorax's supply lines and communication networks, we might be able to weaken their hold on the galaxy." The crew began working closely with the Resistance, helping to plan coordinated strikes against the Zorax. They used the Aurora's advanced sensors and weaponry to identify key targets and develop plans to hit the Zorax where it hurt the most. As the days passed, the crew and the Resistance grew closer, united by their common goal. The humans, once lost in time, now found themselves at the heart of a struggle that would determine the galaxy's fate. Their awakening had brought them to a new reality, one filled with danger and uncertainty, but also with hope and the chance to make a difference. The Aurora was no longer just a relic of the past. It was a symbol of hope for a galaxy in desperate need of change. The crew's mission had only just begun, but their resolve was stronger than ever. They were ready to face the challenges ahead and fight for a brighter future for the galaxy. Finding allies. With their first successful contact made and their initial plan in motion, the crew of the Aurora knew they needed more than just one ally to stand a chance against the Zorax. They needed to build a strong coalition of resistance groups across the galaxy. The next step in their mission was clear: find and unite as many allies as possible. Captain Alex Grant and his team gathered in the ship's command center, studying the data they had gathered. The galaxy was vast and fragmented, and many resistance groups operated in isolation. Their goal was to locate these groups, assess their strength, and persuade them to join the fight against the Zorax. "Let's start by mapping out known resistance locations," Alex said. "We need to prioritize the ones that have the most potential for impact." Dr. Sarah Lynn, the ship's scientist, used the Aurora's advanced sensors to analyze the signals and data from various rebel factions. "There are several resistance cells scattered across different star systems," she reported. "Some are well established, while others are just beginning to organize." Lieutenant Mark Davis, the tactical officer, added, "We should focus on the larger, more organized groups first. They have the resources and manpower to make a difference." The crew set their course for the nearest major resistance cell, located on a planet called Kreller. Kreller was known for its strategic importance and was a key hub for several smaller rebel groups. If they could gain the support of the Kreller resistance, it could provide a crucial boost to their efforts. The Aurora arrived in orbit around Kreller, a rugged planet with a harsh landscape marked by mountains and canyons. The crew prepared for a diplomatic mission and descended to the planet's surface in a shuttle. They were met by a small but determined group of Kreller's resistance fighters. The leader of the Kreller resistance, Commander Jackson, greeted them with a mix of curiosity and caution. "We've heard rumors of your arrival," Jackson said, "but we didn't think you would be the legendary crew from the lost ship. What brings you to Kreller?" Alex introduced himself and explained their mission. "We've come to seek your help. The Zorax have taken control of much of the galaxy, and we believe that by uniting our forces, we can turn the tide. We have advanced technology and strategic knowledge that could greatly benefit your efforts." Jackson listened carefully, his eyes reflecting a deep sense of wariness. "We've been fighting for a long time with limited resources. Trust is hard to come by. Why should we believe that you can help us?" Sarah stepped forward, offering a detailed plan. "We can provide you with technology to improve your defenses and weapons to strike at the Zorax's weak points. Our experience and knowledge of galactic warfare could give you the edge you need." The discussion was intense, but Alex and his team made a strong case. They demonstrated the Aurora's technology and shared their plans for coordinated strikes against the Zorax. Jackson, though initially skeptical, began to see the potential benefits of an alliance. After hours of negotiation, Jackson agreed to join the coalition. "If what you say is true, then working together could be our best chance to defeat the Zorax," he said. "We'll provide you with intelligence on Zorax operations in this sector and assist in organizing joint missions." With Kreller's support secured, the crew of the Aurora moved on to the next target. They traveled to other key locations, building relationships and forging alliances with various resistance groups. Each new alliance brought additional resources, intelligence, and manpower to their cause. As they traveled from one system to another, the crew faced numerous challenges. Some resistance groups were wary and needed convincing, while others were eager to join the fight. The Aurora's crew adapted their approach based on each situation, demonstrating their commitment and capability. By the time they finished their tour of resistance groups, they had successfully united a significant number of factions. The coalition was stronger and more organized, ready to confront the Zorax with a united front. The crew of the Aurora returned to their ship with a sense of accomplishment. They had built a network of allies across the galaxy, each group bringing unique strengths and resources to the coalition. With their newfound allies, they were now in a better position to challenge the Zorax and work towards freeing the galaxy from their oppressive rule. Making plans. With a coalition of resistance groups now firmly in place, the crew of the Aurora faced their next major challenge: planning a coordinated effort to strike back against the Zorax Empire. The stakes were high, and every decision they made could determine the fate of the galaxy. They needed a plan that was both bold and effective. Captain Alex Grant and his team convened in the ship's command center, which was now bustling with activity. Resistance leaders and key advisors had joined them, gathered around a large holographic display of the galaxy. The room was filled with the hum of discussions and the clacking of keyboards as they worked to finalize their strategy. Dr. Sarah Lynn took the lead on analyzing the Zorax's weaknesses. Our first priority is to identify the Zorax's key supply lines and communication networks. Disrupting these will create confusion and hinder their ability to respond to our attacks. Lieutenant Mark Davis agreed, adding, "We should also focus on their command centers. Taking out their top leadership could destabilize their operations and provide us with a significant advantage." Commander Jackson, representing the Cryo resistance, nodded. "We have intel on several Zorax supply routes and communication hubs in our sector. We can provide detailed information on their locations and defenses." The crew and resistance leaders worked together to create a detailed plan. They mapped out their targets, prioritizing those with the highest impact on the Zorax's ability to wage war. The strategy involved a series of coordinated strikes designed to hit multiple targets simultaneously, creating chaos and forcing the Zorax to spread their resources thin. Sarah and her team used the Aurora's advanced technology to develop a series of tactical plans. They created simulations of the proposed attacks to predict possible outcomes and refine their approach. The crew analyzed every detail, from the best routes for their ships to the timing of each strike. "Timing is crucial," Alex emphasized. "We need to ensure that all our attacks are synchronized. If we can hit multiple targets at once, the Zorax will struggle to respond effectively." The coalition leaders agreed, and they began to coordinate their efforts. Each resistance group was assigned specific tasks based on their strengths and capabilities. Some would focus on disrupting supply lines, while others would target communication hubs or engage in direct combat with Zorax forces. Sarah presented the final plan to the group. "Our first wave of attacks will focus on the most vulnerable supply lines. We'll hit these targets quickly and decisively to maximize our impact. The second wave will target communication hubs to further disrupt their coordination." The plan was ambitious and required precise execution. The crew of the Aurora and their allies trained together, rehearsing their roles and ensuring that every detail was covered. They practiced their tactics and refined their approach based on feedback from the simulations. As the preparations continued, the crew faced moments of doubt and uncertainty. The scale of the operation was daunting, and the risks were high. But their resolve was unwavering. They were driven by the knowledge that their efforts could change the course of the galaxy's history. Captain Alex held a final briefing with the coalition leaders. "We're about to embark on a critical mission. Each of you plays a vital role in this effort. Remember, our goal is to weaken the Zorax and pave the way for a brighter future. Stay focused, work together, and support each other." The coalition leaders nodded, their determination evident. They were ready to execute the plan and take the fight to the Zorax. As the Aurora and its allies prepared for the first wave of attacks, the crew felt a mixture of anticipation and tension. The fate of the galaxy was about to be decided, and they knew that their success depended on their ability to execute their plan with precision and courage. With their strategy in place and their forces mobilized, the crew of the Aurora was set to launch their campaign against the Zorax. The battle to reclaim the galaxy had begun, and the outcome would hinge on the effectiveness of their carefully crafted plans. The first attack. The time had come for the coalition to launch their first major offensive against the Zorax. The excitement and tension were palpable as the crew of the Aurora and their allied forces prepared for their initial attack. They had spent weeks planning and strategizing, and now it was time to put their plans into action. Captain Alex Grant stood at the helm of the Aurora, looking out at the vast expanse of space. The ship was fully armed and ready for battle. He reviewed the final details of the attack plan, ensuring that every aspect was in place. The crew members were focused, their faces set with determination. "All right, everyone," Alex said over the comms. "This is it. We're about to hit one of the Zorax's key supply lines. This attack is crucial for disrupting their operations. Stay sharp and follow the plan. Dr. Sarah Lynn, monitoring the ship's systems, checked the data one last time. We've got the coordinates for the supply depot. It's heavily guarded, but we've identified weak points in their defenses. Lieutenant Mark Davis coordinated with the Allied ships, ensuring that each group was in position. The resistance fighters are ready and in formation. We'll strike in 3 waves. The first wave will be a diversion. The second will hit the supply depot. And the third will provide cover and extract our forces. The Aurora and its Allied ships jumped into the system, emerging from hyperspace in the midst of a bustling Zorax supply zone. The enemy was caught off guard by the sudden appearance of the coalition forces. The stars shimmered with the light of distant battles as the ships maneuvered into their designated positions. The first wave of ships, consisting of smaller, agile fighters, engaged the Zorax forces with a barrage of laser fire and missiles. Their goal was to draw the Zorax's attention and create chaos, allowing the second wave to strike with greater effectiveness. The Zorax fleet responded quickly, their ships maneuvering to engage the attackers. The second wave, led by the Aurora, moved in on the supply depot. The depot was a large space station, heavily fortified, and protected by a network of defensive turrets and fighter patrols. The station's exterior was a mass of metal and machinery, with critical supply lines and storage areas visible from space. Engaging the depot now, Alex announced. The Aurora's weapons systems fired in precise bursts, targeting the weak points identified in their intel. The station's defenses retaliated with heavy fire, but the coalition's coordinated assault was overwhelming. Sarah worked alongside the ship's gunners, directing their fire to maximize damage. Focus on those power conduits. They're critical to the station's operations. Explosions erupted across the supply depot as the coalition forces struck their targets. The station's outer defenses crumbled, and smoke billowed from the damaged areas. The Zorax scrambled to mount a defense, but their efforts were hampered by the ongoing chaos and the unexpected ferocity of the attack. Lieutenant Davis oversaw the extraction efforts. The third wave is moving in. We need to cover our retreat and ensure that all Allied ships are accounted for. The third wave of coalition ships provided cover for the retreating forces, fending off Zorax fighters and ensuring that the Aurora and its allies could withdraw safely. The supply depot, now heavily damaged, began to fall apart. The coalition forces regrouped and prepared to jump out of the system, leaving behind a disrupted supply line and a significant blow to the Zorax. As the ships made their jump to hyperspace, the crew of the Aurora let out a collective sigh of relief. The first attack had been a success, but they knew it was just the beginning. The damage they had inflicted was a promising start, but the road ahead was long and fraught with challenges. Captain Alex gathered his team for a quick debrief. Good work, everyone. We've made a strong first move, but we need to stay focused. This is just the beginning. Our next steps will be even more critical. The crew nodded, their faces reflecting both the satisfaction of their success and the determination to continue their fight. The Zorax would not be easy to defeat, but the coalition's first attack had demonstrated their strength and resolve. As the Aurora traveled to its next destination, the crew prepared for the challenges ahead. Their victory in the first attack had given them a taste of what was possible, and they were ready to continue their fight against the Zorax, determined to reclaim the galaxy and bring hope to those who had been suffering under the Empire's rule. The turning point. The success of the first attack on the Zorax supply line had boosted the morale of the coalition forces, but it was only a small victory in the larger struggle against the Empire. The crew of the Aurora and their allies knew they needed a decisive breakthrough to turn the tide of the war. They focused their efforts on finding that critical turning point. Captain Alex Grant stood at the command center of the Aurora, surrounded by resistance leaders and his team. They were studying the latest intelligence reports, looking for vulnerabilities in the Zorax's operations. Dr. Sarah Lynn pointed to a series of intercepted communications on the holographic display. We've picked up chatter about a major Zorax command center located on the planet Terris. It's heavily fortified, but if we can take it out, we could cripple their ability to coordinate and control their forces. Lieutenant Mark Davis reviewed the tactical data. Terris is crucial to the Zorax. It's where they plan their major campaigns and deploy their reinforcements. Hitting this target could cause a significant disruption in their operations. Commander Jackson, representing the Cryo resistance, nodded in agreement. We've also learned that Terris is where they keep their most valuable prisoners. If we can free them, it would not only deal a blow to the Zorax, but also rally more support for our cause. The crew of the Aurora and their allies began to plan the assault on Terris. It was a risky operation, but the potential rewards were immense. They needed to coordinate multiple forces and execute the attack with precision. Sarah and her team worked on devising a strategy for the assault. We'll need to strike at multiple points simultaneously. We should plan for a diversion to draw their defenses away from the main command center, while our main force hits the command center directly. The coalition forces assembled for the mission, their ships and troops prepared for the upcoming battle. The Aurora and its allies jumped into the Terris system, moving swiftly to avoid detection. The planet loomed ahead, its surface dotted with the dark spires of the Zorax fortifications. The first phase of the attack was to create a diversion. Smaller, faster ships, including some of the Coalition's most skilled pilots, engaged the Zorax's outer defenses. They unleashed a barrage of firepower, targeting key defensive installations and drawing the Zorax's attention away from the primary target. As the diversion created chaos, the main force, led by the Aurora, moved in on the command center. The complex was a massive structure, surrounded by layers of defensive systems and heavily guarded by Zorax troops. The Coalition forces engaged in a fierce battle with the Zorax, pushing through their defenses to reach the command center. Captain Alex led the charge, his resolve unwavering as he directed the assault. Focus on breaking through their outer defenses. We need to get inside and disable their command systems. The battle raged on as the Coalition forces fought their way through the Zorax defenses. Explosions lit up the sky, and the sounds of laser fire echoed across the battlefield. The Coalition's coordinated attack began to overwhelm the Zorax, who struggled to regroup and mount an effective defense. Inside the command center, Sarah and her team worked to disable the Zorax's command systems. "We've got to shut down their communications and control systems," she said, her fingers flying over the controls. "If we can disrupt their ability to coordinate, it will be a huge advantage for us." The team successfully breached the command center's core systems, causing critical failures and shutting down the Zorax's command capabilities. The command center fell into disarray as the Zorax struggled to regain control. The Coalition forces pressed their advantage, securing the area and capturing key personnel. With the command center under their control, the Coalition forces began to rescue the prisoners held by the Zorax. The freed prisoners, many of whom were high-ranking officers and key figures, were overjoyed and grateful for their liberation. Captain Alex surveyed the battlefield, a sense of accomplishment washing over him. "This is the turning point we needed. We've dealt a significant blow to the Zorax, and we've shown the galaxy that we can win." The victory at Terris was a major milestone in the fight against the Zorax. The Coalition's success in capturing the command center and freeing prisoners sent a powerful message to the galaxy. It demonstrated that the Resistance was not only capable of challenging the Zorax, but also of achieving decisive victories. As the Aurora and its allies prepared to leave Terris, the crew felt a renewed sense of hope. The turning point had been reached, and the path to victory was now clearer. The fight against the Zorax was far from over, but the Coalition's success at Terris marked the beginning of a new phase in their struggle for freedom and justice across the galaxy. You said, Part 8, The Final Battle. 650 words Kaleko or interesting Hunachaya or third-person style Maleknihad or simple basic English Ka use Karnahai. ChatGPT said. ChatGPT. Part 8. The Final Battle. The Coalition's victory at Teres had shifted the momentum in their favor, but the struggle against the Zorax was far from over. The galaxy's fate now hinged on a final decisive battle. The crew of the Aurora and their allies prepared for their most critical mission yet, a full-scale assault on the Zorax's main stronghold. Captain Alex Grant stood on the bridge of the Aurora, his gaze fixed on the holographic display showing the location of the Zorax stronghold, a colossal space station known as the Dominator. This heavily fortified fortress was the heart of the Zorax's operations, and taking it down would be the key to ending their rule over the galaxy. "Everyone, this is it," Alex said, his voice steady and resolute. "We're about to launch the final assault on the Dominator. This will be our most challenging operation yet. We've planned for every contingency, but we need to be ready for anything." Dr. Sarah Lynn and Lieutenant Mark Davis reviewed the final details of the attack plan. "The Dominator is protected by multiple defensive layers," Sarah explained. "We'll need to breach their outer defenses first, then deal with their internal security to reach the core." The Coalition forces assembled for the battle, their ships and troops ready for the confrontation. The plan was to launch a multi-pronged attack. One team would focus on breaching the outer defenses, another would handle internal security, and the third would aim to disable the Dominator's core systems. As the fleet approached the Dominator, the size and scale of the space station were awe-inspiring. The station was a massive structure, bristling with turrets and defensive arrays. The Coalition forces moved into position, their ships forming a coordinated assault formation. The first wave of the attack began with a full-scale assault on the outer defenses. Fighters and bombers from the Coalition's fleet engaged the Zorax's defensive turrets and patrol ships. The space around the Dominator erupted with bursts of laser fire and explosions as the two sides clashed in a fierce battle. Lieutenant Davis led the assault on the outer defenses, directing his pilots with precision. "Focus on taking out their turrets and interceptors. We need to clear a path for the main force." The outer defenses of the Dominator began to falter under the relentless assault. With the turrets and interceptors dealt with, the main force moved in to breach the station's hull. The Aurora and its allied ships coordinated their attack, launching precision strikes to create an entry point. Inside the Dominator, Sarah and her team worked to bypass the station's security systems. "We need to get through these doors and disable their internal defenses," she said, her fingers flying over the controls. "The sooner we can reach the core systems, the better." The team fought their way through the station's corridors, encountering Zorax troops and automated defenses. Each step was a hard-fought battle, but they pressed on, determined to reach their objective. The Coalition's forces continued to press their advantage, fighting their way deeper into the Dominator. Captain Alex led the charge toward the core of the station. "We're almost there. Stay focused and keep pushing forward." The final push to the core was the most intense part of the battle. The Zorax's elite guards, fiercely loyal and well-trained, put up a fierce defense. The Coalition forces engaged in a desperate fight to reach the core systems, each member giving their all to ensure the success of the mission. After a grueling battle, Sarah and her team finally reached the core control room. They worked quickly to disable the Dominator systems, initiating a sequence that would cause critical failures and ensure the station's destruction. "Get ready to evacuate," Sarah shouted as the countdown began. "We've done it. The Dominator will be down in minutes." The Coalition forces regrouped and began their withdrawal. The Aurora and its allies pulled back from the Dominator, making their escape as the space station began to implode. The explosion was massive, lighting up the surrounding space with a brilliant flash. As the Coalition fleet regrouped in a safe distance, the crew of the Aurora looked back at the remnants of the Dominator. The destruction of the Zorax's main stronghold was a resounding victory, signaling the end of their oppressive rule. Captain Alex addressed his crew and allies, a sense of triumph in his voice. "We've achieved what we set out to do. The Zorax are no longer a threat. We fought hard for this victory, and we'd given the galaxy a chance for peace and freedom. The final battle had been won, but the work was far from over. The galaxy was left in a state of recovery and rebuilding, but the Coalition's victory marked the beginning of a new era. The crew of the Aurora had played a pivotal role in shaping the future of the galaxy, and their legacy would be remembered for generations to come. A new era. With the destruction of the Dominator, the Zorax's reign of terror had come to an end. The galaxy, once shrouded in the darkness of oppression, was now beginning to see the light of a new era. The crew of the Aurora and their allies were hailed as heroes, and their victory was celebrated across countless worlds. Captain Alex Grant stood on the bridge of the Aurora, looking out at the vibrant stars and nebula that now symbolized hope and renewal. The once feared space station was now a wreckage in the distance, and the galaxy was slowly beginning to rebuild itself. Dr. Sarah Lynn was busy coordinating relief efforts and helping planets affected by the Zorax's rule. "We've received numerous requests for aid," she reported to Alex. "The rebuilding process will be extensive, but the cooperation among the different worlds is encouraging." Lieutenant Mark Davis, meanwhile, was working with various military leaders to establish new defenses and ensure peace throughout the galaxy. "We need to make sure that the power vacuum left by the Zorax is filled with stability, not chaos," he said. "Our new alliances will play a crucial role in maintaining order." The Coalition forces, now joined by former Zorax prisoners and other liberated groups, worked together to stabilize regions that had suffered under Zorax control. The resistance groups that had once been scattered and isolated were now coming together to form a united front for rebuilding and governance. Commander Jackson, who had been a key ally in the fight against the Zorax, took on a leadership role in organizing the new Galactic Council. "We need to create a framework for cooperation and mutual support," he said. "Our goal is to build a coalition that not only defends against future threats, but also promotes peace and prosperity." The Aurora became a symbol of this new beginning, with its crew leading by example. They traveled to different planets, participating in diplomatic missions and supporting local governments in their efforts to establish new systems of governance. Their efforts were met with gratitude and admiration from the people of the galaxy. As the new Galactic Council took shape, it focused on addressing the needs of the people and ensuring that the mistakes of the past were not repeated. Policies were developed to promote equality, cooperation, and mutual respect among the diverse worlds and species. Alex and his crew took part in the Council's first meetings, contributing their insights and experiences. "It's important that we learn from the past," Alex said during one of the discussions. "We need to build a future where everyone has a voice and where tyranny has no place." The Council established initiatives to rebuild infrastructure, support economic development, and foster cultural exchange. The once warring factions began to collaborate on scientific research and technological advancements, sharing knowledge and resources to create a brighter future for all. Sarah's work with relief efforts helped to heal the wounds of those affected by the Zorax's rule. "We're making progress," she said. "People are beginning to rebuild their lives, and there's a sense of hope that was missing for a long time." The galaxy, now united under the banner of cooperation and peace, began to flourish. Former enemies worked together to explore new frontiers, establish trade routes, and celebrate their shared victories. The wounds of the past began to heal, replaced by a sense of unity and purpose. The crew of the Aurora took pride in their role in this transformation. They knew that their fight had been worth it, and their sacrifices had paved the way for a new era of peace and prosperity. As they continued their journey through the galaxy, they remained committed to the ideals they had fought for. Captain Alex stood at the helm of the Aurora, gazing out at the galaxy with a sense of fulfillment. "We've achieved something truly remarkable," he said. "The future is bright, and it's up to us to ensure that we continue to build on the foundation we've created." He knew era had begun, and the galaxy was ready to embrace the promise of a better tomorrow. The legacy of the Aurora and its crew would be remembered as the turning point that brought about a new age of peace, unity, and hope for all.